Um, so I think one of the questions that most people are curious about is, why is this flu different, and why should anyone care about it? And so I open it up to the panel. Is this one any different? Has it been hyped?
So it's been a challenge trying to deal with this, and part of this, which I'm sure Peter can talk about, is the fact that this is not a totally new virus, and this explains some of the phenomena that we're seeing.
Dr. Palese, you've questioned whether this is a real pandemic. I mean, how do you see it?
Okay, let me sort of say, there is a saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. One can look at this as a very different virus, and clearly Dr. Monto pointed out what some of the differences are with this new 2009 virus. On the other hand, I feel it is sort of like a fourth regular seasonal influenza virus. And let me explain a little bit. We have, with regular influenza, we have 3 different strains. We have 2 what we call influenza A viruses, and they belong to the H1N1, and many of us have seen this for a long time. H1 meaning hemagglutinin subtype 1 and neuraminidase subtype 1, and H3N2 viruses. So the regular seasonal influenza viruses belong to 2 subtypes, H1N1 and H3N2, and there's a third type, which is an influenza B virus. So over the last 20, 30 years, every season, every winter season, we had 3 influenza viruses circulating. And what happened now is we have, in essence, what I see is a 4th seasonal influenza virus, which is circulating, and that is another H1N1. So I feel that also in severity, it is similar to the other 3 seasonal strains which we have experienced, and therefore I don't think it is sort of a virus we have to be very afraid of. We don't have to panic. This is a virus which we can handle. It's, in my opinion, a 4th seasonal regular influenza virus strain.
Is really based on the fact that it has been past experience with this virus, and we see this in terms of the way the vaccine is working. The fact that we only need, for most of the population, 1 inoculation with this vaccine, which means there is some degree of relative immunity in the population. And there's been a debate about whether to have a pandemic, a real pandemic, you need to have a totally novel virus.
If you look at the virulence here, there was a great deal of hand-wringing at the World Health Organization about whether to declare this a pandemic. And it came down to the fact that pandemic doesn't really reflect severity. And so this wasn't as severe as the H5N1 bird flu, which maybe kills 50 to 60% of the people it infects. And so now the question has become, why bother getting vaccinated? And you even hear a lot of public figures standing up saying that they're not going to do it.
That declaring a pandemic would shut borders because of all sorts of things, and they needed a little time to figure this one out. And that's why there was a delay between going from phase 5 to phase 6. Interestingly, it took 2 days for each of the other increments, but it took 6 weeks.
There was a lot of hand-wringing.
Yes, I did, exactly.
Yeah, I believe.
So the issue is, what is a pandemic? In the past, a pandemic was defined as a global epidemic, meaning an epidemic worldwide, plus, as Dr. Monto said, severity and a change of the subtype. So in other words, if something was an H1 or an H3, we would not have called that a new pandemic. So what happened with the WHO now is that they redefined or made a new definition of what a pandemic is, namely limiting it to the global epidemic term rather than severity and change of subtype. So in a way, we have now a new terminology for pandemics, namely just calling it something which goes around the world, is a global epidemic, but not including severity and the change of subtype.
A lot of journalists like this question, and I think we like it because the public is curious about it, and I don't want to overblow it. But the doomsday scenario of this virus combining with another virus, influenza has a weird property where it can pull whole genes from other influenza viruses and creating a really nasty strain. What do you think the likelihood is of this mixing? The worst doomsday would be the H5N1 mixing with this one, but it could be this one mixing with any other avian influenza that we have no immunity against. What do you think the likelihood is of this mutating or reassorting, picking up other genes from nastier, and creating a nastier bug? I know you've thought about this. What do you think, Dr. Clay?
So influenza viruses have a very interesting genome, a very interesting genetic composition. And it has 8 sort of mini chromosomes. So we have one virus with 8 mini chromosomes and another virus with 8 mini chromosomes, and they co-infect the same host. And then one can get mixing and get a new virus out, which has, let's say, 4 mini chromosomes from one virus and 4 from the other parent. And that gives a lot of combinations. So clearly we have the H5N1 virus, we have current 2009 viruses, and all of these mixing events can happen, and out of that a new, more virulent, more pathogenic virus can emerge. Never say never. On the other hand, I think these events are probably occurring as we speak all over the world, and only very rarely a sort of new virus emerges. So I think, yes, we cannot exclude the possibility that by this, what we call reassortment, mixing of the genes, a new virus emerges. But I think it happens all the time, and very rarely a new, very virulent virus emerges.
So you're not losing sleep over this possibility?
I think it is not. I think it's like I'm not waiting for a lottery win. I think it's very rare, and I think it is also very rare that a new 1918-like virus would emerge.
Dr. Palese, what do you think?
Yeah, we know really a lot about different influenza viruses. We can study, for example, the 1918 virus in the laboratory under high containment conditions. So we really understand a lot about the molecular signatures of these viruses, and really I think that helps us to sort of gauge how virulent a particular virus is and what the potential it has. You know, so we really know, for example, that this novel 2009 virus lacks certain signatures which other pandemic influenza viruses have, and that also, I think, goes along the way to suggest that this virus is not a 1918-like virus.
Or 57 or 68.
Well, I would add also, it won't be like a 1957 or 1968 virus.
Dr. Palese, you said this particular virus, fortunately, does not have the genetic signatures that we look for that tip us off that we're looking at a dangerous virulent influenza.
Why would we want people to get the swine flu vaccine and the seasonal flu vaccine? Wouldn't that in itself cause mixing in the human host and a potential for creating a new pandemic-type virus?
No.
Okay.
Well,
First of all,
it depends. If you're talking inactivated vaccines, no.
So if you're talking a killed, there are two vaccines.
Yeah.
One is killed virus, but the other one is live virus. Mm-hmm. So inactivated, no. But could the live virus mix, could the two mix to create a new strain? Dr. Palese, you've actually helped develop that vaccine. What do you think?
I would like to say with great difficulty. I think this is very, very unlikely to happen.
And the only place that there's even a remote possibility would be someone who got the 2 live attenuated versions of the 2 vaccines at the same time.
Which you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Which you're not supposed to do.
Some people have suggested that the swine flu experience was kind of a fortunate, if tragic because of the deaths, sort of a fortunate warm-up act for the real avian influenza doomsday scenario down the road. Do you concur with that? And if so, what do you think were the most important lessons that came out of the swine flu experience that are particularly important, maybe in preparing us for the avian flu?
I didn't plant the question, but it's perfect. It's a great wrap-up.
only 10 years or so, between 57 and 68, 11 years. And these were bona fide pandemics without anybody debating was it a new subtype or not.
Yeah, I think in a way, even the H5N1, the avian threat 10 years ago, prepared us for the current 2009 H1N1 outbreak. And I think if a new real pandemic or a new strain emerges in the future, I think it will help us to be prepared in a better way.